Legend of the Golden Snail. The golden snail is known as Keong Mas in Bahasa Indonesia. These Indonesia folktales told about the Princess Dwi Limaran had cursed into the snail. His husband Raden Putra was sad because he lost his lovely wife. This folktale for storytelling comes from East Java of Java Island. Prince Raden Putra has married the princess named Dwi Limaran. One day, Dwi Limaran was walking in the palace garden. She saw a snail among their lovely flower. The princess asks one of her servants picked it up and throw it away. In fact, the snail was an old witch who had disguised herself as a snail. The witch was outraged. The witch cursed Dwi Limaran. The witch changed Dwi Limaran into a golden snail. Then the witch the snail into the river. The stream carried Dwi Limaran cursed into snail far away from the palace. On the side of a big forest, there lived a poor widow. Her living was only fishing. One day it was a particularly worse day, as she didn't catch any fish. He has tried again and again. Then she spread her net, but nothing got caught into it. At last, she pulled up the net to go home. Suddenly the widow saw something shining at the bottom of it. It was only a snail. She picked the snail and took it back. Its shell shone like gold. The old woman had never seen such a snail before. The widow put it in an earthen pot placed in her home. Then, she went to bed and soon was fast asleep, as she was exhausted. In the next morning when she woke up, she found the incredible accident. The widow saw that the floor of her house had been swept clean. She also found there was some food on the table. The widow surprised with this accident. She thought who had done all of this. The old lady thought she was dreaming. In fact, she was not sleeping. She had awake. She could not think of anybody who could have been so generous to her. Some days passed, then the widow has a plan. The next morning this old woman took her basket and went out as usual. Shortly the old lady returned to her hut and hid. After the widow had hidden, she heard a soft movement inside the earthen pot. She saw the snail creeping out of it. The snail grew bigger and bigger, and in a moment a lovely young girl stood where the snail had been. The empty shell fell into the ground behind the girl. Quickly the beautiful young women swept the house floor. This girl took vegetables, eggs, rice, meat, etc. out of the pot and began cooking. When the old woman saw this magical moment, she noticed that it was not an ordinary snail she had caught. She had caught the beautiful girl who lived under a spell. The widow realized something. She has to break the shell. The old widow knew what she had used to smash the shell. The widow crept stealthily to the empty shell. Then the old lady took the shell. She rushed out of the hut and went to throw the shell into the river. Now she had broken only a part of the spell. The rest of it must still break before she could return to her husband. The beautiful lady then made herself known to the widow. "I shall pray to the gods, the prince might lead to her place," said the old woman. Many years passed by. The king persuaded his beloved son to look for another bride. Raden Putra was the son of the king. Initially, Prince Raden Putra refused with his father's request. The prince thinks that he could not forsake his wife. After the king had repeated his request, Raden Putra accepted his father. The prince asked his father if he could go out to find a bride. He makes one condition: his bride must look like his former wife. An old faithful servant accompanied him on his trip. They went from town to city and from village to village to find the bride. One day when Raden Putra was traveling through a big forest, they lost and forget their way. Lastly, Raden Putra group came to a big river. They saw there are a hut not far from the river. The group of this prince went to the small house. They asked permission to have some food and drink. The soldier and the prince were hungry and thirsty. They felt dead tired because they got lost. The old woman welcomed the group of Raden Kutra and his soldier warmly. Raden Kutra found the meal served by the old lady excellent. The widow told him that her daughter had prepared the food. The prince, curious whether he might meet the old woman daughter. The prince wanted to thank her daughter. The widow had no objections. Then she called her daughter to come out. The young girl appeared. The beautiful girl knelt down in front of the prince. The head of the girl bent in front of the prince. When Raden Kutra saw her, he caught his breath in great surprise. Raden Kutra realized that the young lady looked exactly like his former wife. His former wife is Princess Dui Limaran. Raden Kutra said, "You are the bride I'm looking for." He cried out, but the girl shook her head and stated that she had made a promise. If Raden Kutra wanted to marry her, he had to get the Holy Gamelan, Javanese orchestra, from heaven. This musical instrument could produce the sound of music without having contacted. Raden Kutra was willing to try to get this magical device. The prince went out into the forest. Raden Kutra makes a fast and sincere meditation. After 100 days of Raden Kutra meditation, the gods heard his wish. The gods granted his hope. On the wedding of Raden Kutra and Dui Limaran Day, the Holy Gamelan played its heavenly music. It was so beautiful, and every person who heard it felt happier than ever. The young girl revealed her secret. She told that she was Dui Limaran, Limaran angel herself. The music of Gamelan had broken the evil witch's spell. The old had been invited to remain in the place. Now she had everything she wanted. The curse had left her.